Good afternoon, students. This is Arindam Bag here. And as we planned earlier, today we will be dealing with the Plague Hosts by Henrik Ibsen. And today I'll be discussing about Act 2, Part 3 and 4. So let us move to the presentation over here. So in this particular part, we can see Engstrand enters wearing his Sunday clothes, and he suggests that now that the orphanage has been completed, the pastor lead a small prayer service for the workers. This is a very common thing in every religion and culture. Whenever we want to start something new, we offer prayer to our respective gods or to our respective beliefs. So Engstrand claims to have occasionally led such prayer himself. So it's been a custom there also. The pastor asks him if his conscience is clear, especially regarding Regina. Now why is he asking about Regina? Because pastor learned something in the earlier part of the play, and that is the pastor is furious with him for not telling him the truth. What is all about? Actually, this is about the marriage. Engstrand replies that he didn't want to spread bad rumors about his new wife, Joanna. He tells a version of the story in which he married her out of pity. Everybody has their own comments, own observation, and own belief. We should not judge a person according to our perspective. We need to understand what the other people thinks about it. We may not be correct in our assumption or in our judgment. The same thing happens here. So Engstrand walks with a limp, and in his story he explains that the injury was sustained during an attempt to halt a drunken brawl. Now, European countries, they have pubs all over. People visit those restaurants and pubs to have a drink, and many times, even in our country also, the bars which we have there, after drinking, people fight with each other and creates brawl. One of the famous playwright, Christopher Marlowe, is also believed to be killed in such a brawl, as he was hiding, and during his hiding he was trying to escape the law, and he was killed in a brawl. And at that time, Engstrand also was involved in such kind of brawl, and he was lying injured. At that time, pregnant Johanna came to him looking for help. When the pastor asked about the money the anonymous yachtsman, Regina's alleged father, that means must be Captain Alving, had given Johanna, Engstrand says that he wanted to throw it in the yachtsman's face, but Joanna insisted they use it to raise the child. Now Joanna realized very well that she is pregnant, she has been in trouble, and the man with whom he is involved, Captain Alving, will not stay by her. But she also understood that she need to raise the child. So out of that situation, out of the misery, when she realizes that sometimes our ego or self-respect is not necessary, rather to survive. So here Johanna, who is in trouble, and Joanna considered that money might help her to raise the child. So in the next part we see that the pastor asks Engstrand to forgive him for doubting him. So this what happens when you hear a story from one side. We need to understand the story from the other side also. People has their own obligation, but we don't realize that. He asks for some way to show his goodwill, and Engstrand mentioned his establishment for sailors, describing it as a kind of refugee or asylum, a place where they could be under warm and fatherly supervision. Now, this is also factually right. This is not totally right. The institute Engstrand is trying to establish has some other features also, which is not been discussed yet. The pastor is enthusiastic about this idea, and for now he sends Engstrand to prepare the candles for prayer at the orphanage. He asks Mrs. Alving what she thinks, and she replies that she thinks he is childish, a baby. Then she tries to embrace him, but he resists and goes to lead prayer at the orphanage. Mrs. Alving shies and then stares out of the window for a while. Now, it has been clear to us that Mrs. Alving still has some sort of romantic or some sort of desire for the pastor, but pastor is trying his best to maintain his dignity. So this is what happens in Act 2. In the commentary section, we may find what happens actually in Act 2, Part 3. In this episode, we see Engstrand at the height of his hypocrisy. At the start of the play, he was wearing work clothes soaked in the rain. Now he is wearing his best clothes. He is careful to cultivate an image for the pastor, although he is a man literally and symbolically soaked in the elements of the countryside. He tries to appear civilized. His language is full of religious cliches designed to fool the pastor. His description of the seller's establishment is the exact opposite of the bawdy house he described to Regina earlier. I told you about this. In his invention of an alternate identity for the sake of the pastor, we see that Engstrand is like many of the play's characters obsessed with public reputation. Actually, we all are concerned about our public reputation, what the people will think. Ibsen never lets us know what Engstrand really thought about his marriage. But we know from the opening scene of the play that he is not afraid to poke bitter fun at the fact that his wife received $300 from a yachtman. We know that he is often dishonest. When Mrs. Alving calls the pastor a baby, we assume it is because he has a naively accepted Engstrand tale. The pastor is so gullible because he is always eager to find an easy answer to things, as with public opinion. He would rather there be no scandals or disagreements. Also, he is highly receptive to the mighty rhetoric of religion, which he uses as a reassurance and which Engstrand uses as a tool to dupe the pastor. Mr. Alving is amused that the pastor is so gullible, but her attempt to embrace him seems to betray some latent, long surviving affection. She shies when he leaves and looks out the window. Night has fallen by now, but she still associates the window with escape, with her desire to be courageous and disregard the law. At this point, that would mean embracing the pastor despite his opinion and despite his shunning of her. It would entail telling Oswald the truth. So, that is part 3. So, let us begin or deal with part 4 now. What happens here? Mrs. Alving walks towards the dining room but stops in the doorway, and he saw Oswald there. He was drinking. He says he is drinking so as not to feel the dampness. Everybody has their own excuses. He has to be told twice that the pastor has gone down to say prayers at the orphanage. He enters from the dining room, patting his mother and telling her how nice it is to be home. He then begins to complain about the weather. And now he can't do any painting without sunlight. So he paces and asks permission to sit next to his mother. It appears the way they are seeking permission from each other, they behaves to be a stranger to each other. He tells her that he has something to tell her. He is sick. Now, what kind of disease he is suffering, you will get to know about it and how the disease or the sickness, it is said to be inherited from his father. He sometimes feels a piercing pain and becomes giddy and senseless whenever he tries to work. So he went to a doctor in Paris, and who instead of diagnosis simply declared, the sins of the fathers are visited to the on the children. There has been a poetry written by William Blake. The name of that poetry is London. If you go through that particular poetry, especially the last stanza, the fourth stanza is the last stanza, four stanzas it has. If you read the fourth stanza, you will find a reference over there, young harlot. People who visit them, often they are uh, affected or infected with STD, sexually transmitted diseases. And when they get married, their children also get infected. The disease we are talking about is syphilis at that time. Right now we have HIV, which is also most of the cases, it is STD disease, sexually transmitted disease. So back in those days, it was syphilis. So there has been a reference in the poetry of um, William Blake. The title of that poetry is London. If you check it out, you will find it is only 16 lines. It has 4 stanzas in each. And in the last section, there has been a reference to this particular thing also. It has been common back in those days in Europe. Brothels or prostitutes were found in places in cities, areas, and people visit them. And people visit them, they often infected themselves by this kind of STD. But Oswald convinced the doctor that this was wrong, showing him his mother's letters, in which he described what a good man Captain Alving was. When the doctor simply said that you are suffering because of your father, because your father had some bad habits or had a bad life, bad practice, initially Oswald was shocked and he said, no, my father was not that kind of person. He was a decent person. And he showed his mother's letters, which she described what a good man Captain Alving was, which was utter lie. The doctor then decides that Oswald must simply be overexerting himself in his enlightened bohemian lifestyle. Oswald is crushed by the knowledge that he has ruined his own health with his living habits. Now, Oswald also having a life of bohemian, so chances are there he contracted this disease. So he realized the disease is deadly and it has its development and it might prove fatal. Mrs. Alving meanwhile is highly agitated and wringing his hands, she repeatedly bemoans the fate of her boy. He asks for something to drink. His mother asks Regina to bring in the lamp and then some champagne. She is worried that he will leave home again and tells him he can have whatever he wants. He speaks to Regina, saying she is the only one who can help him. Mrs. Alving offers her own assistance. But Oswald says that although he considers his mother his best friend in the world, he cannot accept her help as he doesn't want her to have to witness his torment. So Mrs. Alving calls for another bottle of champagne. Meanwhile, Oswald describes how he once casually told Regina that she should visit Paris and that now she had her heart set on it. So it was said casually, but Regina was serious about it. She reminded him of it when we returned, and when he saw her looking expectantly at him, he saw that she was full of the joy of life. Regina then brings the bottle and Oswald asks her to join them. After asking Madam's permission, she does. She was a housemaid now, so she was asking for the permission. A few minutes back, it was Oswald also. So Oswald continues to speak about the joy of life and work, lamenting that people in Norway assume incorrectly that the world is a vale of misery. He says he always paints with an eye towards happiness, and he feels that in Norway all that is based in him is deteriorating. So suddenly Mrs. Alving rises, exclaiming that she now understands how everything fits together and that she can explain everything. Pastor enters and is convinced that Regina must return to Engstrand. Okay, so There's been a disturbance here. The pastor enters and is convinced that Regina must return to Engstrand. He asks why she is drinking with the other two, and Oswald says that they may marry. When Mrs. Alving declares that she has something to say, the pastor protests, but she assures him that she will not disillusion anyone. Then they all notice a bright light and a clamor of voices emanating from outside. Something happened outside. It was an accident. Apparently, the orphanage has caught fire. They all rush out, even while the pastor exclaims that the fire is an act of judgment upon the sinful Alving house. He himself was responsible. He put the candles over there. He also complains bitterly that the orphanage is not insured. He was the person who asked Mrs. Alving not to insure it. So, this is Act 2 and Act 2 Part 4 actually. Sorry, I think I didn't change the slides. So, I'll be moving to the commentary section. The play almost comes to its climax but is suddenly interrupted by a fire. The fire is one of two sources of light that acts as twisted symbols in this act. Other is the lamp. Mrs. Alving calls for it amid Oswald's complaints that he cannot work in this land without sun or the joy of life. Yet his complaints continue. Mrs. Alving cannot provide enough to light to help his current mood, just as she can do little to help him in general. The fire, on the other hand, actually obliterates a falsehood, the fiction of Captain Alving's good reputation, yet it is still purely destructive, not a source of enlightenment. Oswald's sickness makes little sense to the modern reader, but perhaps in the late 19th century it was more plausible to blame an illness on a lifestyle. One possible explanation is that the sickness is syphilis, contracted through imprudent sexual relations. At any rate, the sickness' significance lies in its connection to the play's larger theme of hauntings and ghosts. The illness would seem to prove Mrs. Alving's theory that her son is actually haunted by his father. Oswald's attitude toward his mother is ambivalent. On the one hand, he tries to convince her that he is a loving son, he pats her and calls her his best friend in the world, but he is also obliged to ask her permission to sit next to her. To a certain degree, they are strangers. As the pastors pointed out earlier, however, Oswald is desperate and he looks to his mother for help, even though he suspects that Regina is better alternative. In part, his preference for Regina's companionship may merely be an expression of lust for her, a manifestation of his lust for her merely because he is doomed to repeat the sins of his father. But he may also sense that his mother is in many ways confused. She certainly has a confused reaction to the revelation he makes. She is shocked, and her first reaction is to emphasize her maternal role by calling him boy and by getting him whatever he wants. At the same time, she listens with rapt interest to his thoughts on the joy of life. And after he finishes it, seems that she finally has enough courage to tell everyone the truth, regardless of public opinion, to break free from the ghostly laws that keep her quiet. But then she says that she will not disillusion anyone or break any ideals. The next act reveals that she has not quite broken free. That will be all for today. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe my channel.